Hello, good morning, guys. I hope you're doing well. I mean, I can't believe we're already 2 weeks, only 2 weeks away from 2025. Isn't that crazy? I mean, 2024 has passed, like just in an instant like this. Well, at least for me, it was kind of insane. I hope it was not for you. But many things have happened for me this year, personally, business wise. So that was really, really interesting. Anyway, where do we start? So basically we'll talk about the situation here because it has massive implication both on geopolitical side and the economic side as well. So we'll talk about that. We'll give you a couple of seconds to join. Two things I would like to mention. Over the next 2 weeks, I might take a break and start again on the first week of January. Take a little bit of a break and for the holidays. And the second point is the newsletter. So I've shared in the newsletter last week or this week, at the beginning of this week. I didn't mention it last week on the video, but I will move away progressively for the newsletter and this stream away from LinkedIn for a very simple reason that I just don't want to be tied to a single platform that can decide what I can say, what I cannot say, what I can do it and anyway. So I want to be totally free of the content that I can share and I can deliver to you guys without any kind, feeling of repercussion. Maybe, and I'm kind of a control freak anyway. I like to be in control of all the things that I manage. So that will probably be happening over the course of January. Obviously, I will share multiple messages to give you the time to subscribe to the newsletter that will appear on my website. The reason that you will need to subscribe for this newsletter is because since it will not be on LinkedIn anymore, I will send, just like you receive an email from LinkedIn with the newsletter every week. Instead of receiving it from LinkedIn, you'll be receiving it directly from me. The other interesting thing is that I might also share, for instance, with the newsletter, the same content and the presentation basically that I use here for the live, so that may help you get a little bit more of context, but basically that will give me many more options to be able to share with you guys. So stay tuned. Taking a break over the next 2 weeks for the holidays, coming back, and again, please subscribe to the newsletters through my website. I don't have the link, but I will share the link later. If you check the newsletter from last week, you will find it. But I will do this. We'll do this again progressively to give you the time to switch. And I think that the full switch will be made at the beginning of February. Okay, so there are a few guys already. This is my favorite Italian guy who is here, always here, and when he cannot join, he always watch the live on video on YouTube or even on LinkedIn. I don't know exactly, but this guy. See, I would love to hear take about the drones too. I'm planning to talk about it slightly. The thing is that so let's start, and you'll see. Let's start. There's actually not much information about the drones at this time. So I wanted basically to start with this. So thank you, Attilio. So everyone is talking about the drones spotted in Northeast New Jersey. It seems to yesterday there was a few spotted above the LaGuardia airport. So we have near the airport, we have near some military bases as well. It's been spotted everywhere. Kind of in New Jersey, there are countless videos on social media. But that's very interesting. But what is even more interesting is that nobody knows what it actually is. Uh, and it's a kind of saying, the military says it is not the military. Um, the civil power, let's say mayor, governors, they've been saying, okay, we don't know what it is, but don't worry, it's not dangerous. So at these times, the more you say, I have no idea, but you shouldn't have to be concerned. I think that's probably a good reason to be concerned, actually. So I mean, that I mean, I'm sorry, but that's at this point, at least to me, I didn't find much. To be honest with you, I didn't research much. I wanted to talk about it more like funny way to start the live today, but nobody seems to have any idea. I've seen videos where you have some guys trying to shoot these drones. Yesterday or this morning, there was a report that a drone had crashed in New Jersey. It's just trying to recover it. I didn't have any follow up on that, so it's really weird at this time. Again, there's nothing much to say. I would say there is two options. It's either a military exercise, military preparation for whatever it is, or it's a foreign country doing some kind of intelligence somewhere in New Jersey. This reminded me yesterday about, the how do you call this, the balloon, that was flying, that flew all over the US, and that they actually took down after it had crossed all the US and probably sent all the information back to China at this time, because it was supposed to be a Chinese meteorological device. So again, it might be one of the two. One thing is interesting is that if you link this to the new type of war that has emerged with Ukraine, where the drones are the name of the game today. If you've checked on X, the drones are heavily used by both Ukrainians and Russians to fight, which also explain the limited gains in terms of ground by any side, because it's not like the old wars where you have two battalions fighting each other and then they could move on very rapidly once there is one side collapsing. Now it's not how it works. Most of militaries are in trenches. They are fighting with drones. I've seen reports that there are literally armies of young kids in bunkers, Russian bunkers, that are playing with these drones like video games, and they are not military trained guys. They are gamers basically, that have been recruited. And what I heard from a French reporter is that these guys are extremely well treated by the Russian government, because they are so critical, meaning that they are being removed from any duty for army. Basically, they can get up at the time they want. They have been given a lot of liberty around this, because they are so critical. So in terms of drones, this is what it's about. It's either a US military exercise that they don't want to disclose. It's either a foreign country, doing some intelligence in New Jersey. But why in New Jersey and New York only? I mean, it remains to be seen. And my personal view is probably that it's some kind of military exercise in the wake of what's happening in Ukraine at this time, and preparing for, a next style of war withdrawal. But that's just my opinion at this point. This is not supported by any fact. It is what it is. So next, yeah, I mean, I wanted to. Hello, Cliff. I just want to say good morning to you. It's very nice to see you every week. I really appreciate that. I wanted to follow with Donald Trump. The guy being convicted, impeached with his mugshot, and this is what the tweet, not tweet because it's on his own platform, going from how it started with a mugshot from the police to Time Person of the Year. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so let's stop for the funny part and let's go into some more serious stuff. So, like I just mentioned, you see that in November the Russian captured 4.7 times more territories than they did in the whole 2023 year, which is insane. Which again shows that Ukraine is collapsing, kind of. They are launching missiles on Russia, but it doesn't achieve any strategic objective, and it doesn't gain any territory. The Ukrainian side has not made any progress, and you can see that, like I mentioned last week, everyone's position is shifting at this point towards a more ceasefire resolution of the conflict, where Ukraine would have to abandon some of its land, especially the Russian-speaking part in the east of Ukraine. And at the same time, you can see, that's the title, the topic of the article. Zelensky refuses to conscript more men, especially the youngest men in the country to fight, because probably now he knows that he has done his job as the I would say the no, I would not employ this word. This might, not be nice to a few people. But my point is that Zelensky has done his job for the U.S. He probably now understand that it's totally lost, that the US is shifting his focus from Ukraine to the Middle East. He probably lose some support, specifically in the context where they are starting speaking about, ceasefire. And this is why I believe he started refuse to conscript youth. And if he wants to rebuild some part of Ukraine, he will need this youth. Ukraine, so he, not him, but Ukraine will need its youth, its young men to be able to rebuild this nation. So I've been very critical about Zelensky, but I really approve this move in a war that I never believed that Ukraine could win. And I think that's a good position that it's taking, for at least for the future of what will be left of Ukraine. Next, obviously, the big thing happening last week was the collapse of the Assad regime. It only happened. I mean, I addressed it very rapidly last week. Because I thought that I would have the time to talk about it later, specifically this week. I didn't, because the regime totally collapsed under the pressure of these terrorists that are now labeled as moderate rebels. But you have to remind that this is a tweet from the U.S. Embassy in Syria, who put a bounty on Jolani's head 10 years ago, maybe. No, that sorry, that was 2017, if I remember well. But the objective has always been to topple Assad, who was protected by Russia and Iran to give support to the Hezbollah in Lebanon. And as soon as Russia, specifically less Iran, removed their support, the regime totally collapsed under the forces of Turkey, because Turkey, Turkey has a history of, let's say, I would say fighting, eradicating basically its minorities, such as the Kurds, the Armenians, and there's a lot of support for the Kurdish population in Turkey from the Kurdish population in Syria. And so basically, Turkey helped the terrorists to let's say to fight well, not help fight, but give a lot of support to them. Obviously, this was also supported by the US and Israel. So you have a kind of coalition, a weird coalition between. Maybe not so weird, but Turkey that now has proven that they are ready to betray everyone and anyone. One day they are turning to NATO, they are turning to Europe, they are turning to NATO. The other day they are turning to Russia, and now they are turning against Russia in Syria. So basically, Turkey is not a country that you can trust, at least Erdogan. So Israel, as obviously it was a great initiative for Israel and the US to do that, because it cuts the support from Iran to the Hezbollah in South Lebanon. So Hezbollah in South Lebanon is by itself, so it will probably be now without any support, totally eradicated. You see that we don't mention Gaza anymore. Gaza is over, and on top of that you have Israel invading Syria. You've probably heard that Israel has totally destroyed the Syrian army. At this time, they have bombed military airports, some civil airports, some weapon. How do you call this? Deposits? Maybe they have bombed the Syrian ports in Latakia to destroy the navy. Basically, they have destroyed every military capability in Syria. So Syria will not be able to recover. And what's interesting is that it's with the approval from the new regime, the ex-terrorists that are allying with the Jewish state. So I don't know where it goes, but the real big concern is that now Syria will be turning into a new Libya or a new Iraq at this point. What else can I say about this? I think I've said already a thing about this guy that was labeled as a terrorist, but was helped by the U.S. intelligence to rebrand itself from the Al-Nusra Front, which was a spin-off of Al-Qaeda at this point. They renamed themselves to HTS to kind of start whitewashing them as rebel, with the objective of toppling the Assad regime again, which they eventually did. So obviously now the US and Israel have a total hegemony in the region. Russians are gone, even if the Russians have negotiated with the new regime to keep their bases, their military bases. They have two in Tartus, and the other one I don't remember the name. It's what was it? I think it's Hemelin. Yeah, hair base at Hemim. I don't even know how to pronounce it. But as a reminder, when the Russians were protecting the Syrian airspace, it was in 2015, 2011. I don't remember exactly. From to prevent to support the Assad regime. It was launched from these bases. So it was clear that Russian removed this support because they had negotiated before with the new guys to keep these two bases. I think that's it's only the first development in Syria at this point, because the next step will probably the US wanted to remove these two Russian bases from the region, so there will probably be a new development at this point. What else can I say about it? I don't know. Maybe I have something else. Yes, I mean, for the thing that's just again, I mean, I always like to point the double standards. You know, Russia invades Ukraine. That's two two news headlines from in the U.S. So you have Russia invades Ukraine, but Israeli troops move swiftly inside Syrian territory. So they are good and bad invasion. So I'm not saying this to support Russia like many think I do, specifically on LinkedIn, but I like to point out the double standards. One of the the top with Jolani, top photo with Jolani on the left. The funny part is that he's in the U.S. aid tent, where, I mean, this guy was definitely supported by the US, and specifically for what? For pipeline politics in Syria. You know that Syria, with this alliance with Russia and Iran, was supporting a pipeline project going from Iran through Iraq. That is, if you remember now, so after the US carpet bombed Iraq and left Iraq, obviously not obviously, but what happened is that Iran took the lead over Iraq. So now Iraq is a kind of a satellite of Iran at this point. So they had the pipeline project from Iran to Iraq and Syria to the Mediterranean, to be after that be able to deliver that potentially to Europe. But the competing project was going from Qatar through Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and needed to have control of Syria to go through Syria and then Turkey. So now this pipeline obviously has the lead. This is probably the one that will happen because now that Israel has invaded Syria, at least part of Syria, I mean, it would be very childish that to think that they will uh, move away, that they will give this territory back. They will never will. Netanyahu often speaks about the Great Israel. So I encourage you to take a look at the map of what the Great Israel looks like. I mean, it encompasses some territories in Syria, in Iraq, even in Saudi Arabia, a little bit of Egypt. That's a lot. So I mean, if you have the same logic, you would never go away from the territory that Israel is occupying now. They invaded the Golan at the time. Now they are going a bit further. They will never go away. So Syria is under control now, probably for a very long time on the western side. And so, the wars that happened there, I mean, it's a region filled with a lot of energy, either, obviously oil, gas, natural gas, all that kind of stuff. So obviously, this is why there is major wars all the time to be able to control the natural resources. I mean, it's not a really big surprise. What else can I tell you? I've take notes, a lot of things about this because that would be a lot to say. Um, yeah, maybe just saying, since we are mostly US based, that the US launched strikes against Syria over ISIS at this time. And that's the paradox, and something that is always difficult to understand, and why the US puts itself in so many difficult positions, because on the one side they are helping terrorists, and other sides are claiming to fight the terrorists. So they said that the US launched strikes against ISIS positions to prevent them to regain forces, but at the same time they are promoting the very same guys to the government. So it's a kind of little bit crazy at this point. Just a reminder that it should not be. Where am I now? It should not be a big surprise, because if you remember, there's quite a popular video on X, or on YouTube, from a general. What was his name? I don't remember. There was this general in 2007. Yes, Wesley Clark, who revealed the post 9/11 plan for the Middle East, and the plan for them was to say that they will take out 7 countries in 5 years, and in the list was Iraq, it's done; Syria, now done; Lebanon, done; Libya, done; Somalia and Sudan, I haven't checked, to be honest. And they will be finishing with Iran. So obviously, I mean, it should not be a surprise that the major final objective is to remove Iran, from the threat from Iran, from the map here, just to secure the Western hegemony on the Middle East. That's probably the next step. That's what will happen, and That's why we are shifting from a focus from Ukraine. And like I said just before, Zelensky is starting feeling this, starting, to accept to have ceasefire talks, to the Middle East, where the main focus will be Iran, which will probably be a more serious threat to a global conflict, considering that it has many more impact. You probably would not see China coming to fight for Ukraine. China getting involved for Iran, that's more likely, that's closer. This is energy also as well. Iran is exporting some fuel, some oil to Iran. So it's much more strategic position for many more countries than it is than Ukraine was. And again, it is because of the natural resources. So okay, I would have much more to say, but I think we can move on from now. I could talk about how Assad rejected an offer from the U.S. To cut the support to Hezbollah from Iran through Syria. He refused that. So there are many, things that led to Assad being deposed from his position at this time. Nothing. Well, I would say nothing much more, but that's already a lot on the geopolitics side. So now we can move on to the economy. What to say about the economy? The tariffs. There was a lot of talks about tariffs, and is it inflationary or not? First, tariffs are a way to negotiate with other country. It doesn't mean that they will be actually implemented. And the next point is, well, at least my view about it is that you have two options. So you try to contain inflation by buying some very cheap stuff overseas from China, um, to kind of contain inflation and to have access to cheap goods that are imported in the US. The drawback from this is that you are losing your industry, which is exactly what happened in the US, in Europe as well, kind of everywhere. China has become the factory of the world. Now, the issue that I've mentioned multiple times is that the Western world is now depending on China for many things. Specifically, even the military is depending on China for many, the chips, some, rare earth. I mean, they are the major contributors of rare earth. Rare earth, I agree, this is different topics, but we are heavily depending on China for industrial products. And what can tariff brings is the possibility of rebuilding an industrial infrastructure in the Western world, in the US. Europe won't do this. I mean, they are kind of dead at this point. But at least in the US, I hope with Trump, this is what they will try to, some games that they play to make foreign goods more expensive for the industries that you want to rebuild inside the US. So yes, I mean, we were losing some jobs. So if you want some independence, I mean, the US is energy independent at this time. If it could be totally industrial independent and give jobs to the Americans, this is only something that we can be wishing for. And yes, it comes at a price of some goods that are being higher. Obviously, the tariffs will be selective, and it probably will only hit the goods that the US wants to develop in this. Last week I talked about the tariffs against the BRICS countries, and I wanted to address this a little bit today, because what happened in Syria is very interesting. So Trump said, okay, there will be tariff against the BRICS, and until last week, he said, okay, I mean, that might not be a good idea, because this is exactly why these countries are moving to the BRICS, to get out of the US dollar weaponization. Now, what happened in Syria is that all the countries that came to the BRICS and thinking, well, we'll be protected by Russia. While Russia's protection is not as certain as it was a week ago. So, which means that it will probably limit countries moving away from the dollar, because now, if you are not in a critical relationship with the US, in terms of imports, then you will probably definitely hit by tariffs. You'll support, and you'll think twice before saying, okay, I ditch the dollar, I move to the BRICS and start trading in local currency, because again, my security as a country is not as guaranteed as I thought it was. So I think that's a major move. And the thing is that what the Biden administration tried to do, because the toppling Assad was, a strategy started with Obama in 2011. It was never, in my opinion, it was never really a civil war in Syria, but again, Obama started ISIS and basically proxy fighters to get the regime change that he wants, such as all the color revolutions that we had. It's kind of U.S. intelligence actions, but at the same time, it shows you how strong is the US intelligence to be able to manage this on multiple fronts, in Ukraine, in Syria. So they have really made, so the US intelligence, CIA has really made, a case for its strengths, with this. So again, now whenever a country will think about, leaving the US and move away from it, they will probably think twice, because you have to think that these countries cannot resist either, the US, Russia, or China by themselves. Basically, what they are doing is that they are choosing their master, at this point. So under which umbrella which I want to go, to be protected. And at this time, the only valid protection at this point is the US. So the message is don't mess with the US on the military, level. That's the point. Next, yeah. So, or maybe I can put that a little bigger, because you see this. You've seen that China increased its gold reserves, after some pause. So now they're starting to buy, again, much more importantly. But this is what's interesting, is that it's not the only one to buy gold. Uh, the bottom chart on the right is the global gold purchase from all central banks. And basically what this means, what this shows, is that all central banks are buying gold at this time, which leads you to question why they are doing this now. So we have, so you see, we have China, like we said, Turkey, India, many central banks are buying gold again. So this is something that we've mentioned before. So there are two options, basically for China, an alternative to the US dollar, and maybe in a preparation for, not tomorrow, but in a couple of years, to prepare for, a second reserve currency, maybe. They're probably not there yet, because Russia, as you said, as you've seen, are starting, taking a positive position on Bitcoin. So this is probably one of the ways they can further, stay away from the US dollar, as well, because they are mainly de-dollarized already. But if you would have a second, a reserve currency in China, from China, this is where this might come, backed by gold. This means that probably this is not for tomorrow. Anyway, so all central banks are buying gold, which means that they might be preparing from some, I would say this with quotes, issues on fiat currencies. I think this is probably something that is getting more concern around the world, because a lot of countries are now considering the possibility to add Bitcoin as a reserve asset. And I think once if the US, it's kind of, talk to at this point, is considering adding Bitcoin to strategic reserve, obviously many other country will follow. And I will talk about this in market Bitcoin, because there would probably, at this point, if that happens, there will be a liquidity shock at this time. There's not enough Bitcoin available. The debt, we can see that the current administration is leaving, because they are getting crazy on the debt. They are making sure that the next administration will have as many problems as possible, and can only collapse. That's what they do. You see this basically in Syria. They did this before Trump comes, because they were afraid that Trump would stop it, like he did when he took his first term in 2017. He said, "Stop. We won't try to topple Assad anymore," which was an issue for the CIA again. So they did this. I mean, it might, like I just said, it might have been a bad idea if they wanted to, undermine the Trump term, specifically for the dollar. At the same time, they are spending like crazy, just making sure that it will be very difficult for the next administration. And I even saw this morning. The Biden administration has moved some of the steel that was supposed to be used for the wall with Mexico to an auction site, to be able to sell that parts of the wall before Trump's getting. So, okay, I mean, the message is, okay, we'll sell this so that you will have to buy some of your walls again. I mean, it's insane. It's very childish. It's anti-democratic because it goes against the will of the people who just voted. So yes, the current administration is in power until January, but at the same time, it's not respecting the will of the people. I mean, it's insane. I wouldn't say treason, but it is what it is. Now, if you look at the public debt for every American, look at this. I mean, a baby born in 2024 has already $82,000 of debt on his head. It will be $143,000 at age 18. At the time, he has not even started paying for college. Imagine that. And at 30, it will be more than $200,000. It's insane. It's obviously unsustainable. So that's why Trump will have to take radical measures to be able to fight this, if it is manageable. But it will be really drastic. One of the way, again, is to put Bitcoin in strategic reserve, hoping that Bitcoin will actually become a strategic reserve currency. Otherwise, the only way out will be to inflate the debt out, and this will create a massive impoverishment in the US. Yes, I tell you, so I saw that as well about I guess you're speaking about that they are auctioning the wall parts. I mean, it's just to be annoying at this point. It doesn't achieve anything because obviously it will be bought again, but just trying to undermine the next presidency as much as they can, hoping that it's kind of scorched earth policy at this point, just to make sure that not only Trump but the US is not successful for the next 4 years. And to me, that's kind of a treason at this point. That's how I call it. Don't have to agree with me, obviously, but I mean, here I'm just only expressing my opinion, like most of the time. I just can't help it anyway. So again, budget deficit you've seen in 2024. They try to buy the election. It just didn't work in 2024. We had 624 billion in October and November only. I mean, that's kind of insane. But they definitely try to buy the election. What I find interesting is that the same thing actually happened in Argentina. In Argentina, I've seen this yesterday, which I find interesting. The former the former government tried to buy tried to buy the election by printing 13% of the GDP. They printed this, so obviously they triggered massive inflation, and even with that, they were not even able to win the election. And this is exactly what happened in the US as well. Biden printed and printed. Inflation started going to the roof, and spend, and they were not able to win the election, which means that some people still have a little bit of common sense. Not all of them, and I know a few of them. Unfortunately, you just cannot talk with them. They are totally, close to any kind of rational argument at this point. So I thought that was interesting. And the little chart, I don't know if it's to say graph or chart, but little chart on the left, basically it shows you that the US debt is controlled by 20% by the government itself. And when I say 20%, I include obviously the Federal Reserve and the state and local government. So the government is selling some debt and buying it itself. Isn't that amazing? I mean, if every American would be able to sell his own and buy his own debt, that would be insane. And this is exactly what they do. I mean, it really becomes ridiculous. And at this point, and everyone wonders why there is inflation. I mean, it's pretty easy to understand. I mean, one thing, because I've seen a guy that was saying that, he would believe that China was one of the major owner of the debt. What happens is that China stopped being the major owner of the US debt in 2022. They started selling way before. At the same time, they started raising their gold, the gold that they own, and they stopped being the major order in 2022, and now basically they are a tiny fraction. But even these tiny fraction, in like every market, it's all about liquidity. And you have 20% that has no liquidity. I mean, the government would not sell the debt that it has bought itself. Then you have institutions that have some US debt that is used as collateral. They will not sell it, and that's the kind of a deal between banks and the US government. And that's the reason why they don't mark to market their debt and the unrealized losses, because otherwise no one would buy the debt if they had to mark to market it. So, which means that at the end of the day, on all this debt, very little is liquid. So now when we are concerned that Japan may sell some of the US debt, or even China, so that's only 5%. But considering that the liquidity of the US debt market is not big, I mean, this means that you can move the interest rates by selling the debt. You can increase the interest rate pretty massively with very little, with owning actually very little debt. And if you just let's make the count rapidly. What will not move? So you have 15% federal system, 5% state and local government. So that's 20 already. You can probably add the 20% from the intra-governmental debt. So that's a debt that the US government owns to its own agencies. So that's already 40%. Mutual funds probably won't sell it, and depository institutions definitely won't sell it. So you add 16%, that's already 56. Pension funds, and you add 4, basically. So 60% of the US debt will not be sold, but it will not be moved. It's not in the market. So you can probably move significantly the interest rates with quite a limited amount of debt, because the market is, I mean, yes, I mean, everyone says it's the biggest market in the world, but it's not about the size, it's about the liquidity. We have the same thing on Bitcoin, for instance, where, I've shown a chart a couple of weeks ago saying that you had Bitcoins moving out of exchanges, which means that there are less Bitcoins available to trade, which means that there's definitely a liquidity issue, which increased the volatility of the asset, despite the volatility compressing that the adoption has. So you get the same thing. So you can move markets pretty easily when they are actually illiquid. Is inflation coming back? I mean, it's kind of really concerning. We start seeing numbers showing that inflation is coming back. It should not be surprising, considering what this administration has done over the past. The M2 liquidity measure is still going up. So I mean, I wonder how you can I mean, it should be easy from this point. I mean, we will see again once Trump gets in power, if he can curb that liquidity and spending. It would be very interesting, because I believe we are so far into this system that it will be very, very difficult to control. And on top of that, now even have I'm losing my words. The progress of debt, that the debt is rising faster than GDP. So the debt to GDP ratio is increasing now very, very rapidly, and it's a concern as well. I mean, the next 4 years with the next administration will be critical, highly critical. So I will show you this, and on top of that, so we have inflation coming back, and all central banks in the world are cutting their interest rates. Isn't that insane? So you saw that we had 76 rate cuts in April 2009, at the height of the great financial crisis in 2008, and when this is basically when the market reaches bottom, because governments, federal central banks, were giving free money to everyone. You had something similar in July 2019, and obviously in May. I have to stop saying obviously all the time, but it's kind of obvious to me. In May 2020, with the COVID crisis, everyone wanted to revive the economy with free money, and now we are not supposed to be even in a crisis, and we are at some of the maximum rate cuts from central banks we've seen in the past. So what does it mean? So you have central banks buying gold, cutting rate. I wonder where we are heading to at this point. We'll see, but if this has any meaning, is that central banks are heavily concerned. And if central banks are heavily concerned because they have more information than any of us do, I think we should be. Where do we go from there? So another reason why we should be concerned is that the bankruptcy filings per year, you can see that it's already one in 2000 and in 2024. This year, it's already past the level of 2020, which was the year of COVID. I would say, obviously. Sorry, guys. Um, and so nothing is as good as we are said it is. And I will show you the next graph, the next chart, because this is how the 2008 crisis unfolded. So we have already a lot of bankruptcies. At the same time, if you see the bottom chart on the right, insiders of companies are selling quite actively their stocks. So what does it mean? I don't know, but not everyone is confident about the current status of the U.S. economy. It will be interesting to follow. Again, I mean, I will never stress that enough. The next 4 years will be highly critical for the United States economy, and but overall anyway, just just to show you how the 2007 2008 sequence unfolded. So it started with Bear Stearns bankruptcy, and then you had BNP Paribas halting redemption on two very large investment funds. And then the Fed started to reduce the target funds. What I find interesting is that in December 2007, if I remember well, this is when the Fed, yes, it's probably this one, Fed reduces its Fed fund targets by 25 bips. And this is exactly when the market started going down at this time. So we've seen that inflation is going up, spending is going up. According to them, if the economy is doing so well, there should not be any reason to cut 25 more bips in December, but they will do this anyway. And they're buying gold. I mean, nothing makes sense, right? So the situation is probably not as good as it says to be. And again, what I found interesting is that in December 2007, they decided to cut rates again by 25 bips. At the time, the strategy starting the strategy the crisis starting to unravel, and they had to cut more after that. You have bankruptcies that happen after that. It kept reducing rate. It was not enough, and as you had a streak of bankruptcies as well, Merrill Lynch, Silver State American, and obviously Lehman Brothers, that triggered a massive move in late September, October 2008. And then, like I said, I mean, you've seen this, the massive rate cuts in April 2009. I think that it reached the bottom in March, if I remember well. It started recovering slightly, but I think it was the recovery here, it was mostly technical. But at this point, what happened in April is that all the central banks say, okay, we are dropping the hammer and we are cutting rates. Free money, everyone. Enjoy, it's on us. And that's what saved the equity markets at this point. Equity markets that were already 55% down in March 2009. So quite a significant drop, right? And then after that, it was QE infinity from there, free money from everyone. I won't show you another graph that I shared this week or last week maybe, which showed the S&P 500 expressed in what is potentially the most stable currency in the world, which is gold, which is basically that the S&P is not where it is right now if you price the S&P in gold. most of the S&P has been inflated since, especially since the QE infinity, since the bottom of 2009. But at least, it helps keep it helps you keeping up with the inflation. It's already 11:15. Are you guys still there? I know that I'm very long, but again, I do this for you, but I also do this for myself. This is one way for me to review the week, and basically to think out loud. So that's very helpful to me as well. It's not just only, as we say in French, it's not only for your beautiful eyes of the viewers. I also do this for myself. It's really a review of the week that I really enjoy doing for that reason. Otherwise, markets now. You see, it was kind of a mixed week for markets. On equity markets, S&P was slightly down. The Qs were slightly up. I mean, there's nothing major happening this week. Bitcoin was nearly flat. I think that the most okay. Thank you, Cliff. I'm not alone. Thank you. I know that I'm taking a lot of time. It is what it is. You don't have to do it. You can watch it in multiple times. Like I said, I will do it anyway because that's my way to review the market for myself as well. I think that the most important move today, considering what I've said about interest rates, is TLT, so long-term bonds going down, so interest rate going up, and we are, I believe, now at a critical level where interest rates might go up again if inflation is giving new signs that it's on the upside. So that will be very interesting to follow. I believe we are starting to get at critical points. So what is on the futures market? Well, cocoa. I'm not following really these markets, so I cannot tell you more. But these are markets that are highly volatile anyway. I know that a few of you are trading this. I don't, because that's not what I'm trying to do. My strategy is the way I'm doing this. I want to sleep well at night. So I'm running strategies that are I would say safe enough for my own level of risk. And I want to have strategy that compounds over time. So I'm not trading this except Bitcoin, maybe highly volatile market. So you have cocoa. What else? I mean, there was nothing really significant this week. You had crude oil. Maybe I can talk about this right here. So let's start with equity markets. You see the right part of the chart, graph or chart. Maybe it's line that I don't know, who cares. The right parts, I mean, it was flat for mainly this week, slightly up, slightly down here and there. The VIX is at not at its bottom, but pretty close to. There's not much more room for the VIX to go much lower. Doesn't mean, as a reminder, that VXX, if you trade VIX, is not tradable instrument. But if you trade VXX, you still have the term structure to take into account. So that doesn't mean that VXX is not going down. So keep that in mind. Trading the VIX and trading volatility products is very different. So that's a word of caution. So Attilio tells us that he wasn't able to find ETF on cocoa coffee yet, though. That's a shame. I think that they used to have ETFs on cocoa and coffee before, but they have been removed. Yes, but the issue with this thing is that for that kind of ETF to be valuable for the people that are promoting this ETF, there has to be enough liquidity and enough AUMs, because this is how this BlackRock, or the BlackRocks of the world issuing these ETFs are making money. It's on the slightly management fee, because there's no value added from the ETF that really issued the ETF company that issues these ETFs. So if there's no AUM, they just discontinue it. I believe that there used to be one, but I'm concerned that there will not be in the near future. So the only thing that, if you have guys like you who want to trade this, basket of soft commodities. I don't know the baskets. I'm usually looking at the really large commodity ETFs, such as DBC, for instance. But it's global. It's everything. It can be a diversifier to a portfolio, so that might be interesting to some investors. But yes, your only option is to have access to basket of soft commodities if you want to trade this. If you are not so much risk averse, you can try trading options of them. There are options available if you have a broker that gives you access to options. So that can be TD Ameritrade, Interactive Brokers. That can be interesting, but it's more risky play. Depending on what you play. If you are long option, you only risk your premium. If you are short option, this is potentially an unlimited loss. So this requires a little bit of training if you want to trade options, to really understand. And one of the main drawback of options specifically is that you have to have a target for your scenario to materialize, because you have what we call a theta decay in options. So you have theta decay, which means that if you hold your options, you're losing a little bit every single day. So you just cannot hold your option waiting for your scenario to unfold. There is a timing issue with options as well. Okay, so that was equity markets. 2024. With all the liquidity that the current administration has diverse inside the market, I would say not totally surprised that 2024 is one of the best year this century. If nothing happens, you see we are nearly 30%. At this time, it's on the top. If we make a couple more percent until the end of the year, this will be the best year this century. Now adjust this for inflation again, and you probably have a much different result. Yes, maybe we can talk about Bitcoin a little bit. Why Bitcoin? Because we are still hovering around the 100,000. To be honest with you, I was thinking that once we broke the $100,000, we would go higher faster than this, but we are kind of in a volatility contraction situation at this point, which is what I like basically to trade with options. For instance, when you have volatility contracting, usually markets are going like this. When you have volatility contraction, volatility expansion, and then you can trade, you can put strategies on without taking a view on the direction of the market. So you have volatility contraction, you can buy one of the simplest volatility strategy that you can implement is a straddle, for instance. Which is non-directional. You buy a call, you buy a put. It's limited. The risk is limited to the premium you pay, and you can have a very significant upside if the market breaks out of the volatility contraction zone. So if you look, for instance, at Bitcoin here, we had kind of a volatility contraction over the last year and a half. That's basically the flat line here. And when it broke out, you had some volatility expansion. And that's the kind of play that you can do with options. We have, kind of similar volatility contraction here. It's not as clean as it was before, but it might be interesting because there's some volatility contractions, and it works like a spring. When you are contracting, volatility tends to expand, and then contracting, expand, contracting, expand. And the reason why I mention this is that we may have some volatility expansion. And this goes back to the liquidity issue. Again, what I say here is not an investment advice. Again, it's just what's happening in the market. Volatility is contracting, and at the same time, you have the daily total net inflows in the US only ETFs. So today is between, I think the lowest is $350 million, and the highest was $760 million for the last 10 12 days recently. And so you have this. Remember what I mentioned before, we had some Bitcoins getting out of exchanges, so that will not be traded. So that removes liquidity from the market. We have massive, significant inflows of Bitcoin into the market. And on top of that, only 45 million of Bitcoin is mined every single day. So you have huge demand. You have very limited supply at this point, and very low liquidity. So we might be heading to a liquidity shock. When this will happen, obviously, I have no idea. But when you have buying pressure and very limited supply, I mean, you have to make your own conclusion. But that's what's happening at this time. So unless someone comes and say, okay, there's a big issue with Bitcoin, and then everyone starts selling, we'll stay in that kind of configuration. So I find this very interesting, what's happening on Bitcoin these days. What else? So that's the bonds that I show you, long-term bonds. You've seen that they kind of collapsed this week. They didn't break any trend at this point, or you can view one trend. The first reversion was kind of a pullback, if you want to do some technical analysis, and then falling from there. So again, that's the concerns about inflation and interest rates rising. We're getting close to the end, friends. What is this? The dollar. The dollar, you've seen compared to what I've said before. Dollar went up quite significantly this week with the event in Syria. So that goes back to what I said about at the beginning of the economy section. And the last one, no, that's not the last one. That's gold. Gold, again, some volatility compression here at this point that might be interesting shortly, or at least to me, I'm doing this for fun, and that's the kind of thing that I look at. I've started having started kind of a funny play portfolio when I start trading options on that kind of volatility contraction, volatility expansion. I find this entertaining. I would say I would not advise you to do the same as I do. That's the kind of funny stuff I do. And the last chart was oil. Again, oil as an indicator of recession. You've seen that there was a major change in the situation in the Middle East. Yes, oil went up about 4%, but it's tiny considered the average volatility of the oil market. And at this time, it just didn't change the nature of the oil market. So the oil market, it seems to be still stuck in this thing. The geopolitical situation doesn't seem to have much impact on the oil market. This is kind of thing that I've said for quite some time now, but it seems to be. I show this all the time just because it seems to be confirmed every time. But you also have some volatility contraction here, and that's interesting. At least to me, guys. It's 11:30. It's an hour and 16 minutes. That's probably the longest I've ever done. Thank you for being here. Let me remind you that the live and at some point the live and the newsletter will move away from LinkedIn. I will keep you posted. I will take a break for the last 2 weeks of December. I will come back in January. If you have any specific question about any specific event, I will be happy to give you my view on this. Just drop me a message on LinkedIn, and I may answer directly, or maybe, what I like to do is that, send me your question and I might be doing a very quick video. Thank you, guys. I would like to thank you, Attilio and Cliff, because you're the two guys that are always there and stick to the end, and that to me is amazing. If you would give me an hour and more than 17 minutes show at this time, I would have a very hard time sticking to it for that long. So thank you very much for joining. Ciao, Attilio. Arrivederci. Have a good weekend as well. And with Cliff, I can still speak English. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you for being here. And enjoy your weekend as well. All of you that are still here, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the holidays. I won't tell you happy holidays, but Merry Christmas. That's what I've been saying since I was a kid. So Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holidays with your family. Have fun. And what else can I say? Maybe it's time to go now, right? Thank you so much for being here. Again, I really appreciate it. And see you next year. Bye-bye.